Hello everyone, I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today, I'd like to introduce a lotus bonsai to you all. The lotus is a traditional famous flower, symbolizing purity, firmness, faith, and so on. Its flowers and leaves are elegant and flawless, possessing the quality of facing the blazing sun without fear, and emerging from the mud without being stained. Not only does it carry beautiful implications, but the finished product also has a very delicate appearance. No matter where it is placed, it effortlessly exudes a natural vibe. If you need to purchase the original materials kit and receive crocheting guidance, please search for the store on Amazon, Susan's family. Now, let's get started with the main topic. The bonsai consists of a base and a bouquet. The bottle used for the base is pre-made, so there's no need to make it. We only need to make the bouquet, then place it in the bottle, and stuff it with an appropriate amount of stuffing. The bouquet consists of lotus flowers, lotus leaves, and flower buds. Let's make them one by one in order. After completing, then assemble them into a bouquet. Since the pistils inside the lotus flowers require special materials and methods for making, to manage time efficiently, we'll start by making the pistils. The pistils consist of the lotus seed pod and stamens. Here, we use clay to make the seed pod, and we need to wait for the clay to dry before attaching the stamens. So, let's start with the seed pod first. Once it's done, we'll set it aside. Later, we will attach the stamens. First, take a small amount of clay, then roll it into a circular shape. The ball shouldn't be too large. A diameter of about 2.5 centimeters is fine. After completing the circular shape, start shaping it. The bottom area of the seed pod should be slightly smaller, and the smoother side should be on top. Pay attention to the height, it shouldn't be too tall. About 2 centimeters is sufficient. Once completed, you can use a card or scissors along the upper edge to press out 8 lines evenly. After completing this, insert the lotus seeds into the center. Now, pick up a few lotus stamens. You can see that the ends of the lotus stamen threads have pointed tips. We will treat these tips as the lotus seeds. First, cut the thread. Then insert the lotus seeds into the center of the seed pod. There's no specific requirement for the number of lotus seeds. If the center of the seed pod, that is, on the inner side of the thread here, when the area is larger, you can insert a few more lotus seeds based on preference. When the area is smaller, insert fewer lotus seeds. Just make sure they are evenly distributed. Here, I'll insert a few lotus seeds randomly for demonstration. In this way, the lotus seeds are inserted properly. At the same time, the entire lotus seed pod is now finished. The final product includes 3 lotus flowers, corresponding to 3 pistils. Please follow the same method to make the other 2 pistils lotus pod sections in advance, then set them aside. The method is quite simple, so I will not repeat the demonstration. That concludes the explanation of the lotus seed pod part of the pistils. Next, we will make the lotus leaves. Here, we have 3 sizes of lotus leaves, large, medium, and small. The making method is the same for all. The only difference is the number of rounds. First, we will start with the crocheted part of the lotus leaf. After completing it, wrap paper tape around the base, and attach water droplets to the lotus leaf. Here, I will use a small lotus leaf as an example for the demonstration and explanation. Let's look at the chart. The small lotus leaf begins with a magic ring and is crocheted outward in a circular pattern counterclockwise. While crocheting, you need to include the shaping wire and thin wire. The stitches used include chain stitch, double crochet increase in 1 stitch, reverse single crochet, and slip stitch. Please watch me demonstrate the specific crochet method. For convenience in watching, I will use cotton yarn for the demonstration, and the colors are random. For specific yarn, color scheme, and hook size, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Let's start with the foundation chain. Pick up the yarn with your right hand. Leave a long tail at the beginning. Then wrap the yarn twice around your left index finger. Pinch the crossing point of the loop with your right hand. Take out the loop. Wrap the tail end around your left little finger. And pass through between your index and middle fingers. Transfer the loop between your left hand's thumb and middle finger. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. Move the hook between these 2 points. Insert the hook into the loop. The hook is on the left side of the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise. Draw the yarn through. Crochet a chain stitch to secure. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. We can see. This is what it looks like when the adjustable magic ring is completed. After completing, start crocheting the first round. This round needs to include the shaping wire. First, cut the shaping wire to the corresponding length. Refer to the chart for the exact length. Then set it aside for now. Next, continue from the previous yarn tail. Start with 3 chain stitches as the beginning chain. These 3 chains do not count as a stitch. Next, pick up the large space. Work a double crochet. The technique for double crochet is wrap the yarn once over the hook. Insert the hook into the hole from the starting chain. At this point, pick up the shaping wire. Place it slightly centered above the crochet hook and below the yarn. Then yarn over. Draw the yarn through. Now we have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over again. Pull through the first 2 loops. We now have 2 loops remaining. Yarn over once more, and draw through once. 1 double crochet is completed. We will mark this stitch. Pick up the 2 strands forming a V shape on the top right. Place a stitch marker here. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a safety pin or a paperclip as a substitute. Meanwhile, the shaping wire is enclosed as we crochet. Continue with double crochets downwards. Yarn over. Insert the hook. Place the shaping wire above the crochet hook and below the yarn. Then yarn over. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over again. Pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Repeat this twice. Once. And twice. Complete the double crochet, while also enclosing the shaping wire. Now you have completed 2 double crochets. Continue down with 14 more double crochets. As we crochet, place the shaping wire above the crochet hook. Weave it into the stitches. Continue crocheting downwards. While crocheting, let the shaping wire bend in the direction of our crocheting. And pay attention to the starting tail. If the tail gets shorter, just pull it out a bit. After completing the last double crochet, let's check the stitch count. Each one like this counts as 1 stitch, corresponding to a V-shaped chain above. Please note that the beginning chain is not included. Just count the double crochets. Once done, continue bending and adjust the length of the shaping wire at both ends. The lengths at both ends are about the same. Next, close the ring. First, gently pull the starting tail. We can see that there is a moving loop. Tighten the moving loop. One loop remains. Pull tight the starting tail. Finally, join with a slip stitch at the marker position. There's no need to include the shaping wire here. Insert the hook into the hole at the marker. Yarn over, draw the yarn through. And draw through all the loops on the hook once. The slip stitch is complete. After the slip stitch, we'll see a braid here. This is the braid formed by the slip stitch. Note that the slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. Pull the braid tight to ensure no extra stitches are added later. Once done, take the starting tail, hide it inside the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches for security. Trim off any excess tails. Then twist the shaping wire slightly to secure it in place. This completes the first round. Continue on to crochet the second round. This round needs to include thin wire. Pick up the thin wire. For convenient watching, here I'll use a different color of thin wire for the demonstration. Insert the thin wire into the loop on the hook. Leave 10 to 15 centimeters of thin wire at one end. Then wrap it around the shaping wire and secure it. After completing this, continue with the previous yarn tail. Start with 3 chain stitches as the turning chain. These beginning chains correspond to the turning chain of the previous round. Pick up the position of the stitch marker. That is, the stitch of the double crochet adjacent to the beginning chain. Pick up the back loop of this stitch. Let me point out the position here. Pick up this strand of yarn. Work a double crochet increase in one stitch. Work 2 double crochets into one space. While crocheting, weave in the thin wire. One. Mark the stitch at this position. Continue with the second stitch. Complete the double crochet increase in one stitch. Continue on. Pick up the back loop of the stitch. Work double crochet increases correspondingly. While crocheting, the thin wire should always be wrapped into the stitches. Continue crocheting downward. Finish the last double crochet increase in one stitch. Work into the marked stitch and join with a slip stitch. While crocheting here, place the thin wire above and weave it in. Yarn over, draw the yarn through, and draw through all the loops on the hook. After completing, pull tight the braid formed by the slip stitch. If the fabric is not flat after completion, we can give it a gentle tug to adjust. The second round is completed. Next, start the third round. The method is the same as the previous round, but with an additional double crochet between increases. Start with 3 chain stitches as the beginning chain. Then pick up the stitch of the adjacent long stitch. This is the marked position. Pick up the back loop. Crochet a double crochet increase in one stitch. Make sure to weave in the thin wire. After completing, mark the stitch of the first double crochet. Continue onward. Pick up the back loop of the adjacent stitch. Crochet a double crochet. While crocheting backward, make sure to weave in the thin wire. I won't repeat this instruction for the following steps. After completing, pick up the back loop of the adjacent stitch. Crochet a double crochet increase in one stitch. Continue backward with one double crochet, following the pattern of one double crochet increase in one stitch, which means increase every other one stitch. Repeat this sequence. For this round, always pick up the back loop of the stitches to insert the hook, and crochet. Following this method, continue crocheting downward. After completing the last double crochet, pick up the stitch at the marker position, and join with a slip stitch. Make sure to weave in the thin wire. After completing, pull tight the chain formed by the slip stitch. If the fabric is not flat, just give it a gentle tug to adjust. Then the third round is completed. Continue crocheting rounds 4 to 7. The crocheting method remains the same as before. We need to increase stitches in each round, but the increase pattern varies. Refer to the chart for specifics. When crocheting, always pick up the back loop of the stitches to insert the hook. While crocheting, wrap the thin wire at the same time. The method is the same as before. At the beginning of each round, start with 3 chain stitches as the beginning chain. After completing the first stitch, mark it. When finishing, pick up the stitch with the marker and slip stitch. When slip stitching, continue to incorporate the thin wire. After completing each round, adjust the fabric to ensure it lies flat. The stitch techniques demonstrated previously cover the crochet work up to this point, so I won't continue with the demonstration. Please refer to the pattern chart and complete these 4 rounds of crocheting on your own. After completing them, work the last round. This round requires reverse single crochets. Here, I will demonstrate the method with a sample swatch, continuing from the previous yarn tail. Start with 1 chain stitch as the beginning chain. Here, the beginning chain does not count as a stitch. Then skip the position of the beginning chain. Pick up the stitch of the adjacent double crochet on the right. Insert from front to back. Fold the thin wire to the right. Place it above the crochet hook. Then yarn over. Draw the yarn through. There will be 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over again. Pull through once. 1 reverse single crochet stitch is done. Mark this stitch. After completing, continue to the right. Pick up the adjacent stitch and insert. Crochet 1 reverse single crochet, insert from front to back. Place the thin wire above. Then yarn over, draw the yarn through. Then yarn over, draw through the 2 loops on hook. Complete the reverse single crochet. Continue moving to the right. Pick up the adjacent stitch. Work a reverse single crochet correspondingly. Repeat this process. Continue crocheting downward. Finish the reverse single crochet in the last stitch position. Slip stitch down to the stitch marker position. Here, on the wrong side of the fabric, turn counterclockwise. Insert into the hole of the stitch marker. Continue crocheting. We can either tighten or not tighten the slip stitch. Proceed downward and break the yarn. First, make one chain stitch to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Break the yarn. Pull tight. Tuck the yarn tail into the fabric. Leave a little distance on the thin wire at the end. Then cut it off. Hide the extra part along the crocheting direction. Inside the fabric. The stitch marker can be removed. Make sure to weave in a few extra stitches. And the final round is completed. That concludes the tutorial for making the small lotus leaves. Then make the medium and large lotus leaves. The crocheting method is the same as the small lotus leaves, just the number of rounds are different. Similarly, when crocheting the first round, we need to include the shaping wire. From the second round onward, incorporate the thin wire while crocheting. The making method and stitch techniques have been demonstrated before. I will not repeat the demonstration or detailed explanation here. Refer to the making method of the small lotus leaves and the pattern chart. Complete the required number of medium lotus leaves and large lotus leaves on your own. Once the crocheted sections are completed, we will wrap tape around the shaping wire next. Here, I will continue demonstrating with the sample swatch. Pick up the masking tape and wrap it a few times around one end of the shaping wire at the bottom of the leaf to secure it slightly. After that, continue wrapping the tape evenly downwards. Wrap around the bottom of the shaping wire, and then wrap a few rounds upwards and secure it in place. Finally, cut off the tape. That's how we wrap the tape properly. Following the same method, wrap tape around the shaping wire sections of the other lotus leaves separately. The method is quite simple. I will not repeat the demonstration. Finally, attach water droplets to the lotus leaves. Here, we use glue to secure them. There are two sizes of water droplets, large and small. There are no specific requirements for the position and number of water droplets. You can decide based on your preference. I will demonstrate the method using a small sample. Follow this process to attach the required water droplets. Once completed, set it aside for now. This concludes the explanation of the Lotus Leaves section. Next, we will make the lotus flowers, which consists of the pistils, petals, and calyx. Regarding the pistils, we have already introduced them at the beginning, so I won't go into detail here. The petals and calyx of the lotus need to be crocheted. Here we'll separately crochet the corresponding number of petals and calyxes, then complete the remaining part of the pistils. Finally, we will assemble all of them. First, let's make the petals. There are two sizes of petals, large and small. The making method is the same, but the stitches counts are different. I will demonstrate the method using a small petal as an example. Let me show you the technique. Now, let's look at the chart. For the small petals, start with a chain stitch. Then work along this starting row, crocheting counterclockwise in rounds outward. In addition to the previously used stitch techniques, this also involves single crochet increase, and half double crochet. Please watch me demonstrate. First, let's start with the beginning chain. Pick up the corresponding yarn. Refer specifically to the actual project or chart for details. Wrap the yarn with your left hand. Hold the crochet hook in your right hand. Place it underneath the yarn. Then wrap the yarn counterclockwise. There's a loop on the hook. Pinch the crossing point of the loop with your left hand. Then yarn over. Draw the yarn through. This slip knot does not count as a stitch. Tighten the tail. Now start crocheting chain stitches. The exact number of starting chains can be referenced from the corresponding chart. After completing the required chain stitches, the foundation chain is done. Begin crocheting the first round. Chain 1 as the beginning chain. Then insert the hook into the second chain from the hook on the left side. 1, 2. This is the stitch we are working on. We can see that the right side of the chain stitch is the V-shaped braid. Pick up the outer half loop of the V with the hook. This single strand of yarn is inserted into and crochet 1 single crochet. The technique for a single crochet is yarn over, then draw the yarn through. At this point, there are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over, and draw through once. 1 single crochet is now completed. On this stitch, make a mark. Next, pick up the braid of the adjacent chain stitch on the outer half loop and crochet 1 half double crochet. The technique for a half double crochet is yarn over with the crochet hook. Insert the hook. Yarn over and draw through. Now there are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through once. 1 half double crochet is now completed. Continue downwards. Pick up the braid of the adjacent chain stitch on the outer half loop. Work 9 double crochets evenly into each stitch. Once done, continue. Pick up the outer half loop of the adjacent chain stitch. Crochet 1 half double crochet. I'll demonstrate the half double crochet technique one more time. Yarn over. Insert the hook. Yarn over and draw through. Then yarn over again, and draw through all 3 loops on the hook. Complete the half double crochet. Continue downwards. Pick up the braid of the chain stitch on the outer half loop, and crochet a single crochet. Yarn over, draw the yarn through. Then yarn over again, and draw through the 2 loops on the hook. Complete the single crochet. Continue with the adjacent stitch. Pick up the outer half loop of the braid, and make 1 single crochet. Now reach the edge on this side where we cast on, and crochet a chain for transition. Then pick up from the other side of the starting chain, and go back to crochet. Pick up the remaining half of the adjacent chain stitch, which is the stitch in hole, for the single crochet on this side. Insert the hook, and crochet 1 single crochet. Pay attention to weaving in the cast-on tail while crocheting. Continue downwards. Pick up the remaining half of this side's chain, which also serves as the stitch hole, for inserting the hook on this side, and crochet accordingly. The stitch pattern on this side should be crocheted symmetrically to the other side. Continue downwards. Pick up the corresponding position. Crochet 1 single crochet. Followed by 1/2 double crochet. Then work even and crochet 9 double crochets. After completing, crochet 1/2 double crochet. When we reach the position of the first single crochet, crochet 1 single crochet correspondingly. Similarly, here we reach the edge of the starting point. Crochet 1 chain stitch as a transition. Here, a chain stitch transition was made on both edges of the starting point. Meanwhile, the stitches counts on both sides should be matched. Pay attention to avoid extra or missing stitches. Finally, pick up the marked stitch and join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. Then the first round is completed. Move on to the second round. Start with a chain 1 as beginning chain. Then pick up the marked position. Crochet a single crochet. Make a mark. In the adjacent stitch, crochet a single crochet increase. The increase here is making 2 single crochets into 1 chain space. One, 2. Complete the single crochet increase. Then pick up the following stitches. Work 9 single crochets evenly. After completing, work a single crochet increase, which means 2 single crochets. Then work even for 2 single crochets. Next, go down to the chain space for the transition. pick up the chain space. Be careful not to pick up the adjacent single crochet stitch. Pick up below the braid. Insert the hook. And crochet a single crochet. Two chains for transition, half. Then crochet another single crochet in the same chain space. After completing it, pick up the stitch on this side and work into each stitch one by one. Work the same stitch pattern symmetrically with the other side. Start by picking up the adjacent stitch. Work 2 single crochets one by one. Then crochet a single crochet increase after completing them. Followed by working even 9 single crochets. Then crochet a single crochet increase. Continue picking up stitches from the adjacent stitch. Work 1 single crochet. Then we'll reach the chain position for transition. Crochet the same stitch pattern as the transition position on this side. Pick up the hole below the chain stitch. And crochet 1 single crochet. Then make 2 chains for transition. After completing it, pick up the same hole again. Crochet 1 single crochet. Then we'll reach the starting position. The adjacent braid is at the beginning chain. Skip it. Pick up the stitch marker position and slip stitch. Pull tight. The second round is completed. Next, crochet the third round. For this round, we need to incorporate the thin wire. Continue with the previous yarn tail. First, make 1 chain stitch to start. Then pick up the stitch marker position and insert. At the same time, pick up the thin wire. For convenience in watching, I will use a different color of thin wire for demonstration. Leave about 10 to 15 centimeters at this end. Place it above the crochet hook, below the yarn. Then make 1 single crochet. Wrapping the thin wire into the stitch. After completing, mark a mark. Then pick up the stitches below one by one. Work single crochets into each stitch. While crocheting, the thin wire should always be wrapped into the stitches. When we encounter the position of a transition chain, pick up the chain space and crochet a single crochet. 2 chain stitches as a transition. Let's adjust the fabric to keep it flat. At the same time, adjust the thin wire. Leave the corresponding length at the starting point. After completing, in the same hole, crochet another single crochet. Then continue, pick up the stitches on this side, and work single crochets into each stitch correspondingly. at the transition chain position. Start by picking up the chain space. Crochet a single crochet. Then make 2 chain stitches. Then place the thin wire at the tail end, back in its original position. Pull over the thin wire that was left at the beginning. Then pick up the same hole and crochet 1 single crochet. While crocheting, weave in the starting thin wire. After completing, there is 1 stitch remaining. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet. Similarly, wrap the thin wire into stitches. Finally, pick up the stitch marker position and slip stitch. Here the slip stitch doesn't need to be tightened. Proceed with binding off. First, flatten the fabric. Leave a tail of thin wire, the same length as the beginning thin wire, and cut it off. Then enlarge the remaining loops. Leave a tail of about 5 centimeters. Cut the yarn. Then count 2 braids to the left from the marker position. 1, 2. Insert the hook from the back of this chain. Catch the reserved yarn tail and pull it through from the back. Then insert the hook from the back into the chain formed by the slip stitch. That is, the chain below the yarn tail. Insert the hook into the highest position of the half loop. Draw the yarn through. Make a slight adjustment. Remove the stitch marker. And hide the final yarn tail inside the fabric. The method is quite simple, so I won't demonstrate it here. Now 1 small petal is completed. Continue in the same way for the rest, and complete the required number of small petals. The method is quite simple, so I will not repeat the demonstration. This concludes the explanation for making small petals. Set them aside for now. Next, we will make large petals. The making method is identical to that of the small petals, only the stitch count differs. Large petals also require 3 rounds of crocheting. When crocheting the 3rd round, incorporate thin wire. Additionally, the transition chains at the top of the 3rd round have become 3 stitches. Please refer to the diagram for specifics. The stitch techniques have been demonstrated earlier. I will not repeat again. Please refer to the diagram and the method for making small petals. Complete the corresponding amount of large petals by crocheting. Once completed, set them aside. This concludes the crochet section for the petals. Next, we will make the calyx. Here, each calyx is made up of 2 identical fabric pieces. Crochet them separately first. After completing them, join the pieces together by crocheting the edging. While joining, we also need to incorporate the thin wire. The stitch technique used is the same as before. Please watch as I demonstrate. First, we crochet the fabric piece. Start with the first round. The stitch technique and number of stitches for this round are exactly the same as for the large petals. The method is quite simple. I will skip the demonstration for this part. You can complete on your own. After finishing the first round, proceed to crochet the second round. First, make one chain stitch to start. Then, correspondingly make a single crochet. Mark a mark. Next, pick up the adjacent stitch. Crochet 1/2 double crochet. Follow with 2 double crochets evenly. Crochet a double crochet increase in the next stitch. After completing that, work even in 8 double crochets. Then, make 1 double crochet increase. Continue by crocheting 1 double crochet, one half double crochet, and 2 single crochets. When we reach the chain position from the previous round's transition, pick up the hole underneath the chain stitch and crochet 3 single crochets. After completing, go back and pick up the stitches on this side, crocheting symmetrical stitches to match the other side. First, work 2 single crochets evenly. Pay attention, the position adjacent to the chain stitch can easily be hidden, so make sure not to skip it when crocheting. After completing that, crochet 1/2 double crochet, 1 double crochet, followed by a double crochet increase. Then work 8 double crochets evenly. After completing that, crochet another double crochet increase. Followed by 2 double crochets. Then with 1/2 double crochet, there is still 1 single crochet stitch remaining below. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet into it. When we get to the transition lock stitch position behind, the method is the same as before. Pick up the whole of the chain stitch and crochet 3 single crochets. Finally, pick up the stitch marker position and join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. Then break the yarn. Make a chain stitch to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Break the yarn. Pull tight. Hide the yarn tail inside the fabric piece. The second round is completed. At the same time, one fabric piece is completed. Work another piece. As established. After finishing this other crochet piece, do not break the yarn. Keep the yarn tail and loops. We will crochet the edging later. This concludes the demonstration of crocheting the calyx fabric piece. The crocheted fabric piece is now completed. Next, proceed with crocheting the edging. Join the two fabric pieces together at the same time. Here, I will continue to demonstrate the method using a small sample. Pick up two pieces, right side facing up, which is the side with the neat stitch texture. Then place the two pieces wrong sides together, with right sides facing out, and match up both ends. The side with the yarn tail should be on the right. Meanwhile, the piece that hasn't been broken yarn is at the front. Next, pick up a thin wire. Insert into the loop that hasn't been broken. Leave about 10 to 15 centimeters of wire at this end. Then insert it into the hook. Chain 1 as the turning chain. Insert from the left into the front of the previous piece, on the left side of the yarn tail, in the chain space where we previously inserted for a slip stitch, meaning the position marking the single crochet stitch, which is marked. Insert into the back loop of the fabric. Pick up the corresponding stitch. We can see that the entry position for this front fabric piece is at this end. Is on an adjacent short needle to a half double crochet. For the other fabric piece, find the corresponding end. Add an adjacent short needle position to a half double crochet. Insert. And then work one short needle. Weave in the thin wire. After completing it, mark this stitch. Continue downwards. Pick up the corresponding stitches of the two pieces separately. Work single crochets correspondingly. The thin wire is always wrapped in. Continue crocheting downwards. When we reach the edge, at the position of 3 single crochets, Start by inserting the hook into 2 adjacent single crochet of the pieces, and correspondingly make 1 short stitch. When we reach the centered stitch of the 3 single crochets, pick up the stitch and work 1 single crochet. Follow with 2 chain stitches as a transition. Work another single crochet in the same hole. After completing, adjust the fabric and also the thin wire. Continue downwards. Pick up stitches respectively. Work single crochets correspondingly. Come to the marker placement on the other side. After completing, we can remove it. Move back to this end, where there are 3 single crochets at the edge. With the same method, pick up the adjacent single crochet first, and work 1 single crochet. Then pick up the centered stitch, and work 1 single crochet. Following with 2 chain stitches as a transition. Work another single crochet in the same hole. As we crochet here, bring over the thin wire that was reserved at the beginning. Place the tail of the thin wire in its original position. And continue crocheting. After completing, 1 adjacent stitch will remain. Crochet 1 single crochet into it. Finally, pick up at the stitch marker position and work a slip stitch. Here the slip stitch doesn't need to be tightened. Let's bind off. The method is the same as finishing of the petals. I'll skip the detailed explanation here. Just hide the final yarn tail inside the fabric. For the tail of the thin wire, leave the same length as at the beginning. Then cut it off. A whole calyx is completed. Continue in the same way. First crochet 2 pieces separately. Don't cut the yarn for one of the pieces. After completing, work the edging in rounds. Combine the pieces in pairs. Repeat this process until complete the required calyxes using this method. The method is simple. I will not repeat the demonstration. That concludes the explanation of making the calyx. Set it aside for now. Next, we'll work on the remaining part of the pistil. which is the attachment of the stamens. We need to wait until the Lotus Pod section is completely dry before attaching. Here, I will demonstrate the method with a small sample. First, pick up the stamens. Fold them in half, matching the beginning and ending. Then apply glue a little bit upwards from the edge of the lotus bottom. And attach the pointed ends of the lotus stamens upwards. There is no fixed requirement for the number of stamens. Just make sure to cover around the lotus pod completely. Here I'll use a few lotus stamens for demonstration. You can continue attaching the lotus stamens. Following this method, just fill up this circle completely. The method is quite simple, so I won't continue with the demonstration. That concludes the explanation of making the pistils. Here is a completed pistil. As you can see, this is what the pistil looks like when it's finished. Let's move on to the assembly. First, assemble the petals and calyx together. Then attach the pistil in the center. There are 3 lotus flowers here. 2 of them have the same number of petals and sepals. The other one has slightly fewer petals and sepals. For convenience, I will refer to the one with fewer petals and sepals as the small lotus flower. The remaining 2 will be called as the large lotus flowers. At the same time, I will use the small lotus flower as an example to demonstrate the assembly method. First, install the small petals. Twist the thin wire at the bottom of the small petals. Pick up a flower stem. Wrap the thin wire of the small petal around the flower stem. Secure it in place. This small lotus flower has 4 small petals. For the remaining 3 petals, fix them to the stem with the same method. At the same time, ensure the right sides of the small petals are all facing inward. Then secure them one by one. After that, pick up 5 large petals, with their right sides also facing inward. Wrap them around the outside of the small petals and secure them. Here, the large petals and small petals could be slightly staggered. After completing it, make a slight adjustment. To curve the petals a bit. Once done, pick up the calyx. Here, we have 5 calyxes. Following the same method, secure them one by one to the outside of the large petals. The method is pretty simple, so I won't demonstrate it here. After completing this, tidy up slightly. Curve both the petals and the sepals a bit. Finally, adjust the length of the flower stem. The length of the flower stems for each lotus flower is different. You can use scissors to trim them to the desired length. You can also fold the end of the flower stem in half. Refer to the chart for the length, or adjust according to your preference. Next, use paper tape to wrap around the thin wire and the flower stem. Similarly, make a few extra rounds at the starting point to secure it. After that, continue wrapping the paper tape downwards. When we reach the bottom, go back and wrap a few rounds upwards. Then cut off the tape. For the upper part of the thin wire, you can add 1 to 2 more layers if you like. I won't demonstrate this step here. Finally, attach the pistil at the center position, on the inner side of the small petals. We apply glue to the bottom of the pistil. Then place it directly into the center of the petals. Which finishes the assembly of the pistil. At the same time, the small lotus flower is now assembled. Assemble the remaining 2 large lotus flowers in the same way as the small lotus flowers. First, pick up a stem. Then, attach 5 small petals in a circle. Make sure the right sides of the petals face inward. After completion, attach 7 large petals around the outer edge in rounds. Then, attach 7 sepals around the outside of the large petals. Finally, tidy up a bit. Here the petals are slightly staggered. After completing it, trim the stem. or folded in half. The dimension of the stem can be referenced from the chart. You can also adjust it according to your preference. The method is quite simple, so I won't demonstrate it here. After it's completed, wrap paper tape around the thin wire and flower stem. Finally, attach the pistil to the center of the small petals. Note that the number of petals on the large lotus flowers is identical to the number of sepals, and the calyxes will have some left over in the end. Set them aside. This concludes the explanation of how to make the lotus flower. Once the lotus flower is completed, set it aside as well. Next, we will make the flower bud. It consists of petals and calyx. The calyxes here are identical to those used for the lotus flowers. We have already crocheted the calyxes earlier. The calyxes left over from assembling the lotus flower before are the ones needed for the bud. Just the position between the calyxes at the base was secured. The assembly order is as follows. Start by making the petals for the flower bud, then sew them into the shape of a flower bud. After completing, secure a portion of the calyxes. Finally, assemble everything. Please watch as I demonstrate. Let's start by making the petals. The method for making these petals is the same as for the calyxes. A single petal consists of 2 identical fabric pieces. Similarly, start by crocheting the piece. Once completed, join them together by crocheting the edges. When joining, it still needs to incorporate thin wire. The making method and crochet stitch techniques have already been demonstrated earlier, so I won't demonstrate them again here. There's no need to bind off at the petal area. After completing the slip stitch, pull tight. Finally, hide the yarn tail inside the fabric. That concludes the explanation for making the petals. Next, we will sew them together. Here, I'll demonstrate the method using a sample swatch. Pick up the yarn that matches the color of the petals in the actual project. For convenience in watching, I'll randomly use a color for demonstration. Thread the yarn needle. Then pick up the petal with the right side facing you, which is the edging side. The side with the neat single crochet texture facing you. To make it easier to hide the yarn, we will sew on the wrong side. Place the petals with their right sides together. Next, from the bottom of the petal, at the end with a thin wire, pick up the chain space and insert the needle. Pull the yarn through. Leaving a little yarn tail. For security, go through the same chain space once more. After completing this, move to the left. Pick up the adjacent stitch. Insert the needle and sew together. As we sew, keep the starting yarn tail at the top and hide it inside the fabric. Continue from there, picking up stitches and sewing them together correspondingly. When we encounter a knot, pick up an adjacent single crochet stitch and sew through it. When we reach the top of the petal, pick up the chain space and sew through it once. Once completed, make sure the petal's right side faces out. Then pick up another petal, with its right side also facing out. Place it on the side of the two petals that have not been sewn together yet. Sew the edges of these two petals together by picking up stitches. Start by picking up the holes at the tips of these two petals, and sew once. After completing, pick up the stitches correspondingly, and sew them together one by one. When we reach the bottom, pick up the chain space and insert the hook to sew once. Once completed, these two petals will still have one edge left unsewn. Continue sewing this edge. Start by sewing through a chain space once. After completing that, pick up stitches, sewing them together correspondingly. Note that you need to stuff the filling in behind when we're sewing and there's still some distance left. Stop without finishing the thread. There's still a bit of distance left at the bottom. Let's stuff in some filling. Here, we use yarn scraps for stuffing. Judge the amount you need by yourself. If you stuff too much, the fabric will be too stiff. If you stuff too little, it won't hold its shape. Once completed, continue sewing the remaining part. When we reach the top, to make it secure, sew through each hole twice. Finally, hide the end of the thread inside the fabric. You can weave in a few extra stitches for good measure. Cut off the excess yarn tails. This completes the sewing of the petals. Set it aside for now. Next, we'll sew the calyxes. Here, only part of the calyx needs to be sewn together. First, mark the sewing position. I have already marked it on my sample. Let me explain the position. Pick up the calyx with the right side facing up, which is the side where the single crochet texture is neat. Then find the bottom end, the side with the thin wire. Find the half double crochet position in the second round of the fabric piece. Then find the corresponding single crochet position for the edging. Place a stitch marker on the stitch to its right. After that, place another stitch marker on the second stitch to its left. Mark this position with a stitch marker between these markers, including the stitches with the markers. There are 4 stitches in total. When we encounter a bind-off section, the single crochet stitches here are quite dense. When sewing later, we can simply insert the needle into the hole above the single crochet. Both sides of the base of the calyx need to be marked, and the positions of the marks on both sides should be symmetrical. These are the places that need to be sewn together. Once we have determined the positions, start sewing downwards. I will continue to demonstrate using the sample swatch. Pick up the yarn that matches the color of the calyx in the actual project. To make it easier to watch, I will use a different color for the demonstration. Thread the yarn through the sewing needle. Then pick up 2 calyxes and place them horizontally, with the right sides facing each other. Make sure the sides with the thin wire correspond. Then insert from the first marked position, on the right side of the front calyx. Pick up the stitch. From the back, also pick up the marked stitch, and insert. Pull the yarn through. Leave a little yarn tail. Then, insert from the back into the adjacent stitch on the left side of the calyx. On the left side of the calyx, insert from the front into the corresponding stitch. After completing, continue by inserting from the adjacent stitch on the left side of the front sepal. Exit from the corresponding stitch of the back side of the calyx. There is one more marked position below. Sew together by inserting the needle from back to front. Finally, bring the yarn to the starting point. The stitch marker here can be removed. Tie a double knot with the beginning and ending yarn tails to secure them. Hide the excess tail inside the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches. Just hide the other yarn tail in the fabric, using the same method. Then one side of the two calyxes is sewn together. Continue sewing the next calyx, following the same method. Matched up with the corresponding side of the previous two calyxes. The sewing method is the same. It's quite simple. I will not repeat the demonstration. You can complete it on your own. Sew together the remaining calyxes. My sample here is already sewn up. The corresponding position of all calyxes. Take a look. This is what the sewn section of the calyx looks like after it's completed. Similarly, set it aside for now. We will assemble everything in the final step. Here, I'll demonstrate the method using a sample. Pick up the sewn petals. Pick up the calyx. At this point, the wrong sides of the calyxes should be facing out. Thread the thin wire of the petal through the center of the calyx. Then pick up the flower stem. Secure the thin wires of both the petals and calyx to the top of the stem. Leave a small distance at the top of the stem, and insert it into the petals. Finally, wrap the thin wire and stem with paper tape. The length of the flower bud's stem can be trimmed according to your preference, or you can bend the excess part. I won't demonstrate that here. There is only one flower bud here. Up to this point, all the flowers and leaves have been made. Finally, we will bundle the flowers and leaves together at their lower positions. Here, use the lotus leaf to do the wrapping. Then adjust the position according to your preference. Once completed, secure it with tape. Here we wrap in the area where the lotus leaf is wrapped. The height of the wrap should not be higher than the bottle. After you have finished wrapping with the lotus leaf, compare it with the bottle first. Once you find the right position, start wrapping. The method for comparison is quite simple, so I won't demonstrate it. Here, I will start wrapping with the tape directly. Once completed, insert it into the vase finally. We can first do the stuffing in the bottle. And then insert the bouquet? We can also insert the bouquet first, and then do the stuffing. The method is quite simple, so I won't demonstrate it here. This concludes the entire process of making the bonsai. I have now finished explaining everything. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode.